Oh, God. Oh, that is horrible. Hey, your radio station doesn't have to sound like crap. All you need to do, just avoid these.
We are on the air.
Hey, I'm Jeff, the radio DJ dude, and this is your spot on the digital dial for all things radio. Now, it took me a while, but I finally cracked the code. I mean, literally, this code. And found a way to prevent most audio train wrecks on your radio station. And yes, you're welcome. You know what I'm talking about. Song intros being trampled on by voice tracks and imaging elements. Now, I get it. If you already roll a fancy radio playout system, well, this probably isn't going to make you tingle in all the right spots. But for the rest of us scrappy radio dudes and dudettes who use RadioDJ to create radio magic, well, this is just what you've been searching for, because this right here is what we're trying to avoid.
80s to the extreme. Triple X 80s. Triple X 80s.
Oy, total small market fail. Come on, don't junk up the internet waves with that kind of slop when it's just so easy to pull off a polished sound. So let me first play you an example of what I mainly hear on internet radio, and it's a standalone imaging element between two songs without any overlap. Okay, check it out.
Triple X 80s. Totally rad. Totally commercial free. 24/7.
And while that may float some of your dinghies, well, I'm going to show you how I like to roll. And keep in mind, my roots, they're in top 40 radio. So I'm all about massive momentum, keeping that music train chugging forward. When one song ends, well, that next one is right on its heels, as are any imaging elements. So here we go. I'm going to change up the start and next start cue points on that sweeper. So here's what we're doing. By setting the next start cue point right here, now make sure to never set it on top of the start point, because in the database, there has to be some separation between the start and the next start values. They can't be the same. So even that's plenty. I may even nudge it a little more. What this will do when Foreigner Say You Will ends, when its next start point is triggered, well, it'll fire off this sweeper. And it'll start right here, and then it'll immediately start level 42. And then it's going to wait a little bit, let the intro hit, and then it'll run the sweeper. Okay, let's give this a shot.
Triple X 80s. Totally rad. Totally commercial free. 24/7.
Now I get it, this is 153% subjective. You may like the first sound. Personally, I dig the second sound. But if it's important to keep that energy moving on your station, well, this is the spot for it, because I've got some cool code that I've tinkered with in the laboratory for months. I mean, not full time, but this has been a project that's been on my mind for a long time, because, oh my gosh, to actually pull this off in the olden times? Well, I'm going to show you what I used to have to do to make this work on my station, the all 80s flame-throwing powerhouse, triplexx80s.com. So in those olden days and times, well, let's take level 42, Something About You, for example. We'll crack into this, and when I first started using RadioDJ, well, a lot of this was new to me. But when I stumbled across the magical Others tab, oh, the heavenlies choir started singing, harps started being plucked, because this was packed with promise and potential. And as you could see here, I use a lot of these values in other ways that they probably really weren't intended for. So in the old days, I used to use this gender value, and I'd set it to mixed anytime a song would have an intro of at least 15 seconds or more. 4K, well, that then ties in to my voice track system, where I use sweepers as voice tracks. And I did a whole deep dive video on that early on. That was one of my first videos, and you can watch that up here if you're also looking for a cool voice track solution. But I wanted to avoid intro squashing train wrecks with my voice tracks. I didn't want to be talking over the intros of songs. One way to prevent that when I'm building a rotation out is to make sure to only select songs with intro times of 15 seconds or more when I attach a sweeper to them. I mean, there's no other way to do that unless you found a way to tell RadioDJ that a song actually had an intro of suitable length. So I used, the gender for that. As for language early on, I used all these languages which, come on, we really don't have any use for. Well, I used them to mean other things. Before I, started getting tricky with SQL code and nuttiness, I assigned different year values to the language options. But coming back to this example with sweepers and imaging elements, I used the start type to mean different things. My values for start type, for soft, it meant a song had an intro of 4 seconds or more. For hard, it was 7 seconds or more. Fade was an intro length of 20 seconds or more. And voice, that was a cold intro. So 0 seconds. Now, why does this matter? I'd use this for my different jingle categories, which to me, we don't have time to jump back into the ring and have a smackdown over, is it a jingle or is it a sweeper? I'm an old school radio guy. So a lot of these production elements that are running, over songs, those are sweepers. They're not jingles. Jingles are traditionally sung radio elements. But anyway, that's not the point of this video. I'm sure we can duke it out in the comment section below. So hard I used a lot, as you see with level 42, something about you. This means when I'm building a rotation, I can program a specific jingle type, which you see over here, quick sweepers. A lot of these quick sweepers are set up to run over the intros of songs, just because, like I demonstrated, I prefer that sound. But I don't want the sweepers mucking up, a cold intro. When I program in my rotation a quick sweeper jingle, I make sure the very next song has a start type of hard, meaning it will accommodate most of my quick sweepers because they're really never going to go over 7 seconds. So don't blow the others tab off if you're looking for RadioDJ to perform certain circus tricks that aren't natively built into the software. Okay, that was a short story made super long. But I guess let me wrap up this thought because I'm talking about rotations and how I use these. Let me jump in to a rotation here and show you what I mean. You remember we were talking about quick sweepers? So this is set up, jingles, quick sweeper, there we go. Now, it is going to play a song, top 40 80s song, that has a start type of hard. See, this is how I program that in a track rotation. So we're guaranteed a song with an intro time of 7 seconds or more. As for my voice tracks / sweepers, we'll look up here, you'll see 80s top 40 with a sweeper right at the start of the song. And if we look at the song, you're going to see gender is mixed. Like I described, all my mixed songs have intro times of 15 seconds or more. And this ties in to my sweeper / voice track length. Extreme 80s fun right here on Triple X 80s. My name is Jem and Jeff Scott. When I record voice tracks, I make sure they never exceed 15 seconds. So I'm guaranteed a really nice, smooth execution on air. Let me do one more thing with you here. At some point when I got more adventurous, I jumped into the database and came up with some code. I mean, you want to hear how much times have changed? I mean, we're talking maybe less than 2 years ago. I actually had to hire someone, maybe on Fiverr or Odesk, someone who knew SQL to craft this convoluted long string. Where today, whenever I have a nutty idea, I go right to my coding assistants in the cloud, ChatGPT or Claude, and tell them what I want to accomplish, and they bang out the code. But, I mean, that wasn't always available. Evolution, my friends. This was a programmatic way to accomplish that feat. For example, if you didn't know about this system and you already loaded 1,233 songs into your database, that would be some serious manual hell to have to go song by song and open up track edit, come over to others, scroll down and change. I mean, let's say you wanted to use my system of setting gender to mixed, because I don't use gender when I'm pulling songs. That time suck to me almost wouldn't be worth it. So I found this code instantaneously back in the database, got me to where I needed to be. And I mean, this still has relevance if you want to roll my voice track solution by using sweepers within RadioDJ to pull that off. I mean, this still is relevant because you want to make sure your sweepers don't trash any song intros. And that's one quick and easy way to do that. But once again, not the focus of this video. Or could it be? Well, you're going to hear some examples of my quote-unquote voice tracks. It's really just to prove that this code works, where kind of the main intention was to use this code for production elements, your imaging elements, your sweepers, liners, anything you want to run over a song intro and not violate that song intro, then this is for you. But hey, if you like how a voice track sounds using this, go nuts. We've stumbled around a bit like a drunk sailor on leave in Qatar. So let's kind of come back and refocus here. Well, that way works, but does require some coding. This way only really involves some copy and pasting because, of course, hey, it's your radio DJ, dude. I got you. I'm going to get you this code. And it may look big, bad, and scary, but it really isn't. We'll crack into this and I'll explain block by block. But basically, all you're going to be changing is, this subcategory, which will be your production element. Right now, 133 is just this test category, but we're going to change this. I'm going to convert some of these quick sweepers into these whisper sweepers for the next phase of this test. But before we do that, let's jump back and I want to show you this code in action. And what we'll do is we'll actually play a production element and a couple voice tracks so you can kind of get a sense of what it's doing and how it is respecting the song intro. And what it's doing is it's first looking at the running time of your voice track element or sweeper, but not total runtime because that is meaningless. If this is 15 seconds, beginning to end, but we have our next start cue point, 0.4 seconds in, well, that value has to be part of the equation. And if not, well, you could have some song wrecks on your hands. The code is ingeniously doing some math, and it's making sure it comes up with the exact running time variable that we need in the next phase of the calculation, which is to select a song with a suitable intro, one that is of the same length or just a little shorter, which I'm saying here, 0.7. And you could change this variable. If you want more wiggle room, you could change, this is running time plus. So if your jingle is 5 seconds, but you want there to be a little more pad, or you want more wiggle room with the songs it can select, well, you could change this value right here to anything you want. 0.9. There we go. Paul Abdul. I know that this voice track VTS is at least 15 seconds. So now it's pulling Paul Abdul, who has a 16-second intro. And if put this down to 0.5, now it's changed. Now it's pulling Trinier, 15.4. Hang on there. For this code to work properly, all your songs need proper start and intro time cue points. So it's essential that you set intro times for all your songs in your library. So let's kick this thing into gear so you can hear how this sounds with some voice tracks and with a sweeper element. Extreme 80s fun right here on Triple X 80s. I'm Jammin' Jeff Scott. You know, the 80s were the only decade where you could have fruit-related car issues.
How could you not notice a man sticking a banana in your tailpipe?
This is Triple X 80s.
Triple X 80s. Totally awesome radio.
Okay, if you could already see a future of smooth, wreck-free audio, then please share a like and subscribe with me because I'd love to share all my future tips and tricks with you. Also, since we were just yapping about voice tracks, well, if you're looking for more things to say when you're rocking that mic, you should definitely check out this video. But not just for the video, because in that description, there's a link to download a PDF with 13 big freaking content ideas. But hang with me a little longer on this one because there's more future-proofing ahead. Hello, Triple X 80s.
This for the contest?
No, it's for the blood drive. If you give us 8 pints, we'll give you a CD.
I want to give you a CD. Ha, ha, ha.
You're scaring me.
Why do I hear that from most women? Triple X 80s.
Love and the respect. Didn't trample all over that intro. Let's do one more.
Triple X 80s.
Woohoo! All right.
Totally awesome radio.
What? Oh, mortal hit. What the heck happened? At this part, I'm going to spare you. But like I mentioned early on, I have been working on this code for quite some time. And this was my original code, which was really flawed because how I was calculating the running time of the jingle. And it was allowing the system to pull jingles that were 6 seconds, but play them on top of a song with a, half a second intro. So this really stumped me. And being a coding dummy, which I'm fully admitted over the time we've known each other, well, back to the coding assistants in the sky, and I hit ChatGPT up. We went back and forth, and honestly, I just was not getting the kind of output that I needed. So I jumped over to the very capable Claude, shared the code with him. I gotta respect the bot's pronouns. Don't want to be canceled. I got closer with Claude, but I'm using the free version. Wouldn't you know it? The gate comes crashing down, and they cut me off. But they got me close enough to realize there was an error in our time calculation. So I went back to ChatGPT with this limited knowledge that I possess and say, hey, I think we're calculating the time incorrectly. And then ChatGPT asked me for more info from the database, and this is key. Now, one of my goals has always been to inspire you to chase after your creative dreams. If you can concoct it up here, well, that bot can help you make it a reality on the air. But you first must provide enough context and specific data. I mean, these coding robots, they're not psychic. They don't really know anything more than what you're typing to them. So if you just say, hey, write me some code to play a sweeper, then pick a song whose intro time is a little less than the sweeper time, well, come on. How is that supposed to know what the variables actually look like in your database? So once I started pasting examples from my database with duration, original duration, and the queue times, because the bots need to see those exact variables and how they look in the database. Well, then it started to squash all those bugs once it got a handle on the actual code that it needed, the actual data it needed to crunch. So only then could it produce this code, which I have to tell you has been pretty rock solid during my testing. As with anything, make sure to do some serious tire kicking. Run this, a good hour on your production room version of RadioDJ and make sure that you are getting consistent results. This is what you're going to be changing. The ID subcat 133, that's basically my sweeper. That's going to be your production element or voice track. I mean, you can also, throw in a voice track subcategory because that's what it's basing it on. The running time of your production element or voice track. And then down here, you're going to be changing most likely the subcategory because for me, subcategory 2, those are 80 songs. So make sure this aligns with your music subcategory. And then genre, this is a big one and probably will be different for you. For me, 143 is top 40. So you'll probably have to change these two. And I am asking it to respect my rotation rules with the track and artist rules right here. That's what this is doing. Then it's ordering the songs by least recently played, which is my preferred method. As with the sweepers, it's ordering them by least recently played too. And this is also checking the upcoming queue list to make sure this artist is not in the queue list. Okay, so for this next test, what I want to do is I want to find the subcategory of whisper because I'm going to move some of our quick sweepers into whisper, which is 135. I want to test this out. So let me make some changes here. I need to change a number of these. 135. Let's come back over here and go to jingles. I want to see all my jingles. And you know what? I want you to serve up all those hot quick sweepers for me. I'm just kind of doing this by memory, but if we take all these whispers, we'll move all these jingles down to whisper, okay? You see that? Let's change that. Good. We have a nice variety to work with. Now, just so you know, all these have that similar cue structure we were talking about, where I have about almost a second of silence, and the next start point is very close to the start cue point. Once again, using this method, when one song ends, your next song will start, and at least a second of its intro will establish before this sweeper will hit, which is just a real slick sound, in my opinion. So you could see a lot of these have that structure. Okay, let's reload our rotation and kick this thing into gear. There we have a whisper. And okay, it shows London beat 9 seconds. Let's hear how this baby sounds.
Triple X 80s, commercial free, extreme 80s fun, 24/7.
Okay, that passed. Let's move on down the line here. Let's test out another one of these babies. And oh, I love Hourglass, but no time to listen. I'm working for you, baby. Okay, ooh, this is kind of tight. I'm not going to even look. You see, whisper.com, and then Ramones 5-second intro. Oof, I'm a little nervous. Let's experience this together.
XXX80s.com.
That's really interesting. I didn't even know I had such a short sweeper. Maybe that's for something else, because I really would never run that. But hey, it sounded good. It respected, that intro time, which is great. Let's blow out some more of these. Here's another whisper. I think this is really humming along beautifully because soft sell is 9 seconds, and I know these whispers, they really don't run that long. But let's take a listen.
Triple X 80s. Totally awesome 80s music, baby.
That just sounds so good with such a recognizable, intro note of Soft Tainted Love. That just, to me, is really a great polished sound. Ba-bum, bump, and it's a great 80s song. And then the sweeper starts. So that's a really nice integration of imaging elements with your music. And this code guarantees, well, quote unquote, guarantees a smooth Crisco oil on your wedding night execution. And you're welcome for that visual. Only one more test. The thing I love about using the sweeper functionality for my voice tracks is that in the sound settings, it does reduce the song volume. There's mix functionality when you're using a sweeper. So it dips the song intro a little to make room for that audio. But I'm not sure any mixing is going on with this execution. So one way to test that, because all these files are overlay files, one way to really test this is, to set this to an extreme 1. So it's going to be really noticeable if it is mixing the song intros down if it's set to 1. Let's clear this out, load it up again. My money is on it's not going to mix it down because it's a separate element. Okay, roll them.
Triple X 80s. Totally awesome 80s music, baby.
Okay, so that's a big old no. It's not lowering the intro volume. So keep that in mind when you're producing any production element. It is incredibly mandatory that you're processing your audio before you're importing it to RadioDJ or whatever radio playout software that you're using. It needs to be, compressed, EQ'd, limited, normalized, all of it. You want your sound to punch through all the noise online. It's imperative that you do that. And if you want to use a convoluted free solution like FFmpeg, which has some decent compression, it's just not easy to use, or, which I've yammered on in the past about, I have a really cool suite of 5 or 8 Audacity presets that are fine-tuned for radio. And it's just one click, processes an entire folder of audio files in an instant with all the right compression, EQ, limiting. So that's what I use, and it's lightning fast, and it guarantees a really good sound. Because if you don't do that, your production elements are going to be buried in the intro. Naked Eyes, that is a pumping intro. And there's no way an unprocessed piece of audio could survive that. You just wouldn't hear it. What good is me running my gums about the importance of audio processing when it's to be heard? So what I've done, I have kind of remixed one of these whisper sweepers, the one you just heard, but I disabled all the audio processing. So this is pretty much dry. This is kind of audio that you'd get using 11 Labs, or it could just be you yapping into a mic. And you can see here, cue starts. So it'll start the song. It'll wait about a second. Then it'll trigger this voiceover cue. So this is it here. This is the one we heard earlier, Totally Awesome Baby. This is Whisper, Totally Awesome Baby, but with no processing effects. Let's set this up with Naked Eyes, that real powerful intro. We'll slot this in. Take your earplugs out and listen up.
Triple X 80s. Totally awesome 80s music, baby.
Did you hear a sweeper? I don't think I heard a sweeper. I heard some kind of whispery voice on the radio, but really couldn't make out anything she said. And just so you don't have to rack the video back, here is that same track with processing.
Triple X 80s. Totally awesome 80s music, baby.
Aha! And right there is the power of processing. One more example of how you can pull this off is another favorite of mine is if you have a sweeper, a production element, that actually starts with some produced sound. And by that, this is what I mean.
Triple X 80s.
Woohoo! All right.
Totally awesome radio.
So right before the listener react, that's where I have my next start point, which will trigger the song right at that moment. But as you heard, the beginning of this imaging element actually has some sound effects.
Triple X 80s.
Woohoo!
You let the sound effects and the voiceover first establish, and then that kicks in your song. But let's actually hear this, live, baby. And I'm curious if it could survive that pumping intro of Naked Eyes. So let's give this a good kick in the pantalones.
Triple X 80s.
Woohoo! All right.
Totally awesome radio.
Yeah, slick, baby. That is slick. So as you can hear, those mix settings really have zero bearing in this scenario. And even though that Whisper Sweeper file is an overlay file, well, since it's not associated with an audio track before it, it really is a standalone element. So those mix settings, they just don't apply. It's not like a music bed that has a next start cue point, which triggers a voiceover track to run over the music bed. And in that case, once that voice file is triggered, well, RadioDJ knows to reduce the level of the music bed because it's attached to that music bed. Now in our situation, well, that Whisper Sweeper and the song are two unrelated elements in that playlist, meaning no mix settings. So in a nutshell, that's how those settings work. And along those same lines, when you have a file tagged as a sweeper and it is playing over a song intro, well, this is saying reduce the volume to this level. And the same goes for a voice track file. But you can't have a separate track that's not attached to another track and expect this track to have a volume reduction because they're two independent elements. They're not linked. Even though this is an overlay file, well, it's not playing over a previous track. So they're separate. And those rules don't apply. And not to beat a dead aardvark, but once again, that's why audio processing is your biggest ally in this situation. As long as you have good, full spectrum cracking audio with your, sweepers and jingles and voice tracks, then you're in good shape. So there you have it. Crap sounding radio, be gone! Just doing our part to preserve the innocence of song intros all over the world. Beautiful, isn't it? Well, if you're frothing at the mouth for that magic code, well, just check out the link in the description. It's free and it's patiently waiting for your click. I thank you for hanging out with me. I am Jeff, the Radio DJ Dude. And until our next radio rendezvous, you keep rocking those mics all over the world.